Welcome to today's video, which is a very exciting one because I am finally sitting down to tell you all about my birth story. This is all about the birth of my second baby girl. She'll be 3 weeks old tomorrow, so hopefully I'm not too fuzzy on all the details, but I'm really excited to be sitting down and just going through all the details of this birth because it was a whirlwind. It was a little crazy at times, but it turned out so beautiful. And I think if you've been following me for a little while and if you've been around since my birth with my first daughter Nova, it was complicated in the way that it was the most beautiful, wonderful day of my life, but there also was a lot of trauma that came with it. So I'll link that video in the iCard and down below if you want to get familiar with my birth story with Nova. We're gonna get started on Mila's birth story. First, I'll give you a little introduction. This is Mila. Her first name is Mila and her middle name is Elodie. Mila Elodie. She is so stinking sweet, you guys. She's just the sweetest little thing and we are so in love with her. Seriously, just so thankful to have two little girls in our lives. Like, we're so lucky, so grateful. So thankfully, Caleb kept track of kind of like the timeline of everything. He like had his notes open and he was always keeping track of like what was going on at what time and stuff. So I do have that to refer to. So thank you, honey. That's awesome. So basically we'll start at the beginning. So Mila was born, I was 39 weeks exactly when I went into labor, and she was born at 39 and 1. So I kind of had a feeling that she was going to come early, or maybe it was like a hope. Maybe I hoped it to happen, I'm not sure. But the morning of the day that I went into labor, I actually lost my mucus plug and had like my bloody show. So I kind of felt like it was probably happening that day, or if not, like really soon. So we kind of just went about the day and I felt like an urge to get everything ready and like try to prepare myself just in case it did happen. And so it's funny, I actually had Caleb take Nova to the store because I wanted him to pick up like silly things. Like, I wanted to make sure we had enough of Nova's milk for like when she was being babysat, so her grandparents didn't have to, you know, worry about that. I wanted to make sure we had lots of hand soap so that if people were visiting, there was lots of hand soap for them to wash their hands. So I literally sent him to the store for hand soap. But anyways, he was at the store and it was about 5 p.m. and I was just kind of hanging out. And luckily I was standing in my bathroom, actually, so above the like tile floor, and my water broke. And that was so interesting to me because I didn't have that happen with Nova. I had to have my water broken with Nova. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the movies. And I knew from reading that it's not actually very common that your water breaks before labor. One thing about your water breaking before labor is it's kind of like, okay, this is actually labor. All the days leading up to labor, you're like wondering if labor is going to start or if this contraction means anything or anything. So having your water actually break was like, okay, this is real. This is really happening. Anyways, so I called Caleb and was like, dude, come home, please. You guys saw in the birth vlog if you watched. Please come home. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea if it really was gonna be like the movies where all of a sudden contractions start and you just like are in full-blown labor, or if it was gonna take a while. I just didn't know what my body was going to do. And then on top of that, I felt a little bit of urgency because I had tested GBS positive. So it doesn't happen to every pregnant mama, but it did happen to me this time. It didn't with Nova. And so essentially it just meant that I needed to have antibiotics when I went into labor. So the other part of that is that if my water were to break, that would mean I would need to start antibiotics right away because the membranes are not intact anymore. So it's just more risk for infection for babies. So it was important to get things started right away. So that's kind of why there was a bit of urgency for me. So I called my midwife right away. She you know, let me know that she was going to come on her way over. So she arrived around 6:30, and by the time we were able to like set everything up and everything, she was able to give me my antibiotics around 7. It's a funny story. We used the like tripod, our camera tripod, to be like the IV stand so that you know, it could be higher up. I thought that was kind of funny. But at this point, we had actually had sent Nova over to our neighbors to watch over her, just because I didn't think she would handle it very well, seeing like mom getting a needle and like all of those things. So I just thought it would be better if she just went and played with her little friend in the in-between time of when her grandparents came to like take care of her at our house, and they spent the night with her. But anyway, so around 7 o'clock I got my first dose of antibiotics. I hadn't really started active labor yet at that point. I had some contractions, but they weren't like doing anything pattern wise or anything like that. So I was just told to kind of get some rest where I could, do some things. I could do some things to help it along, like switching my positions, doing some walking, like stuff like that if I wanted to. So around 8:30 and from like 8:30 to 11 o'clock, my contractions started to get a bit more of a pattern. They became like more, so like 5 to 6 minutes apart and lasting like 45 seconds long kind of. And they were totally manageable. They hadn't gotten too intense yet, and I was able to breathe through them and everything. So I was handling them fairly well, but I could tell that, you know, active labor had officially started. Things were starting, and it wouldn't be, you know, too much longer before I was holding my baby in my arms. So that was very exciting. During this time, I'm like timing contractions on like my phone, on like the labor app, and communicating with my doula, like telling her like what's going on, and I'm trying to make like a little bit of a plan of when we're heading to the hospital and stuff like that. So with the antibiotics, you have to have a dose every 4 hours. So I had been to the pharmacy like the week prior and picked up, they gave me 2 doses. So I was able to do 2 doses at home, and then after that I would have to be at the hospital to do the next doses. So we were able to labor at home for a little while in between, and then get ready for my midwife to come back to give me the second dose of antibiotics. So that happened around 11:15, and at that point she did check me, and I was almost 4 centimeters dilated at that time. And that's when my contractions started to get a little more intense. They were like harder to breathe through, harder to manage. They were starting to get just like more intense. I did that until like 12:30. I like labored in the bath a little bit, was trying, you know, my different positions and like my different labor techniques and stuff. And that's when I brought out the comb. So there's like a labor technique where you have like just a hair comb, and you put it in your hands and you squeeze it as hard as you can, because it kind of just tells your brain to like focus on the pain in your hand from squeezing the comb, and takes away some of that focus on the pain of your contraction. So I held on to that comb for a good long time, and I did find it helped a lot. But yeah, the comb was my friend. So I was in the bath laboring, and my midwife had left again, and our plan was that we would be going into the hospital in time for the next antibiotic dose, because of course that was what I needed to do. So I was just gonna labor at home a little longer and then head in. But as I was sitting in the bath, I was like, why? Why don't I just go now? I'm like, I have to leave in like an hour and a half to go there anyways. Like, there's no point in me just like going through this pain right now, especially because I did at that point plan to get an epidural. So I just thought, yeah, let's just go. So I almost regretted getting in the bath, because it meant I was all wet and I had to like get back out. But nonetheless, we started getting ready to leave. This is like the point where I get like kind of irritable, because like you're in so much pain. Like, contractions are intense. They hurt, man. They really hurt. So if Caleb's like being slow with like packing the car, I'm like, I can't, hurry up. We were able to get going, and we got in the car. We had our hospital bag already, car seat in there, everything. So we headed to the hospital. The hospital is about a 40-ish minute drive away from our house, so it's a good little drive, and it's like the most dreaded part for sure, because you are stuck like sitting up in your seat of your car. Like, you can't like do any of the positions that help you or like sway or like anything. So you just like, I'm just sitting there holding my comb for dear life and like trying my best to breathe through them. And they were getting pretty intense at that point. For me, they were getting pretty intense. So I could tell there was a bit of panic in Caleb's eyes. Later, he told me that he thought I was like so close that we were at risk of delivering in the car. And I was like, no. I wanted you to hurry because I was in mad amounts of pain and I just needed to get to the hospital. But I find that funny. So I just picture him now when I look back. He was driving thinking I was gonna give birth in the car. No, that wasn't it. But I was just breathing through the contractions as much as I could. He actually said after that he thought I was handling them really well because I was so quiet, but it was just the only way I could like just focus was just get through the next one, because yeah, they were getting a bit more intense at that point. So we left home around 12:40. He wrote down, and then got to the hospital around 1:20 a.m. And so he dropped me off at the front, and actually I opened the door and I just like puked my guts out on the sidewalk there. That was fun. That just kind of shows like that things were moving along. I was getting like, you know, the pain was getting to me. So puked my guts out on the sidewalk. So sorry to anybody that had to see that. And then my doula met me at the door so Caleb could drop me off and he could go park the car. And my doula Kayla helped me through the hallways. And honestly, I don't think I would have gotten myself through the halls without her. So funny story, actually, we get to the elevator and we get in the elevator, and then as soon as we like step into the elevator, a contraction starts, and I'm like, okay. So she's holding on to me, we're like holding each other like face to face, and I'm like leaning on her and we're swaying and we're breathing through them, she's helping me through them. And then the elevator door opens and we're at our floor, but I hadn't finished the contraction yet. So I had to watch the elevator doors close and our elevator go back down to the main floor. I was like, no, but I couldn't move because I was, you know, mid-contraction. So it was kind of funny, but it was definitely like one of those moments where you're like, no. So anyways, we ended up getting back to the floor. And then at the like admittance desk there, they have to do like a screen for the big C word. And this was super frustrating. So frustrating for a woman in labor who's like on the like edge of not being able to handle it anymore, you know? Because Caleb wasn't there, they wanted us to do the screen, Caleb and I, together. They said it was faster that way if we just did it together so we could say yes or no to all the questions. But of course, Caleb was not there yet, and as you see in the birth log, he was filming clips, which I'm not mad about because like it's part of what we were doing, but I'm also like, I was pretty mad at that moment because I had a feeling he was being slow for some reason, probably filming, maybe just being slow. So my doula and midwife were like, it's okay, like husbands are usually fast, he's gonna be here right away. Because I'm like laboring, like going through these contractions in the hallway and they're not letting me through until he gets there. And I'm like, no, you don't know, he's so slow. I was so mad. But I was trying to contain myself and not like, you know, be mean or get mad at the nurses and everybody because they're just doing their job. And I knew that me getting angry wasn't going to help my situation. Basically just going through contraction after contraction after contraction in the middle of the hallway. Eventually they were like, okay, he isn't coming, so I guess we'll do your screen now. And I was like, thank you. And then of course he walks in at the last second. So we finally get to our room. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're in pain, it really, like every minute counts. So we finally get to the room and we walk in and oh my goodness, the flashbacks. You guys, it was the same delivery labor room that we had with Nova. It's the smallest room that they have in this hospital, and it has these like purple like wallpaper accent things that like triggered all these memories to me. And of course, like there was a lot of stuff that went on with Nova's birth, so walking into that room I was like, oh my gosh, I hope this is a different experience like with my post-birth stuff. Like I hope being in this room isn't like a bad omen. So walking into that room was like a big like deja vu flood of emotions. But anyways, I didn't have time to think about that either. I was in pain. And so we get there and my midwife tells me that she had already communicated with the nurses to get the anesthesiologist over, that I was looking for an epidural, and so we just had to kind of wait for them to arrive. And so I was like, okay. So this is where my doula is helping me through these contractions, like, you know, we get through the next one, and I'm holding on to that comb for dear life, just like, oh, so hard. And I basically, every like 5 seconds after every contraction, basically I was like, okay, are they coming, is the anesthesiologist coming, is the epidural coming, like, can we get the epidural, because like where are they, like hurry up, like let's get that started. And they're just like, they keep telling me, okay, they're on their way, like we already called them, like they're coming, trying to, like, you know, keep me going basically. And then, you guys, the most frustrating thing, the nurse walks in and she goes, hi guys, so do you want me to page the anesthesiologist? I was like, I was just like so upset because it was 25 minutes that I was thinking that they were already coming and they hadn't even been called yet. So anyways, I was like, keep going. Luckily, after we all just kind of like laughed and went, uh-oh, luckily the anesthesiologist came really quickly after that. So got started on my epidural and started to feel some relief not too long after. But what ended up happening is I got like the shakes. I didn't have this with my last experience, but I guess she said something about how when you're just in so much pain and then the epidural all of a sudden gives that relief, like your nerve endings are just like, I don't know enough to really talk about it, so I'm not even gonna try. But basically I had the shakes, like I was like, ugh, for a while. I don't know how long. It was a while. I feel like at least an hour, maybe more than that, just straight up shaking. And so they covered me in blankets and tried to like get me to rest. So I got the epidural around 2 a.m., 2:15 a.m. And then it was only about like an hour-ish later, around 3:30 a.m., that my midwife was telling me that Mila's heart rate we were having a hard time like really tracking it and getting it picked up on the monitor, like the monitor that they put on your belly, and that it was having some decels, and so she wanted to put this, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically, it goes like into my cervix and into her scalp, and it's like a monitor like directly on her head. We just weren't being able to pick up her heart rate well enough, so she did do that, which is so sad. Like anything that affects baby is of course sad, but I knew that that's what we needed to do. So I don't know what it was called, but it just Caleb wrote down fetal head thingy on the notes. So that was around then, and then at 3:45 I needed to have the OB come in to do an assessment because like I said, her heart rate kept having low decels, which is fine, it's expected for that to happen, but it's also, we're monitoring how she's recovering after her heart rate goes down. So it's actually like, I found it kind of a haunting, like, it's hard to explain, but the beeping of the monitor, so you hear it, right, and that's her heart rate, and it's like a constant good speed, and then you hear it start like lowering, and you hear it go beep, beep, beep. And every time it did, because it happened so often during my labor, because that was the big thing, it was like haunting. It was just such a eerie feeling to hear it lower like that, and to see like everybody's faces in the room kind of like waiting. They're kind of waiting to see what was going to happen, waiting to see what she was going to do. So anyways, so I got the OB to come assess to see, you know, if there was something we needed to do further and all that. So she did check me at that point. That was like 3:45 a.m. I was 6 centimeters dilated at that point. So what ended up being decided is that she was having, these heart rate decels that just were a little too much for her to handle. Let me sit you down because you are a furnace. Okay, hopefully she's just right here. Hopefully she stays asleep. Her heart rate was just a little too much for her to handle and to be able to recover from. So they wanted to talk to me about my options, and this is where things got a little bit scary for me. I really only had like 2 options. Option one was that they were kind of prepping me for the plan, the potential plan that I would have to go in for a C-section because she just wasn't really handling labor well. Every contraction was, putting her in that distress. So we started talking about C-section. And of course, that's a scary thought. That's not what I wanted for, my birth. That's not what I wanted for birth to go. But I knew that if that was what I needed to do, then I would do it and I would cope with whatever came with that. But that doesn't mean I didn't have a lot of emotions having that conversation and talking to them about this. We went through, I had to go through all of the consent stuff, literally, I was prepped that if I had to be wheeled away, I was going to have a C-section, whenever it was needed. And it seemed from what our conversations were that it was quite likely. So I was having to kind of work through those emotions right on the spot. And this is where having a good support team and having people there that advocate for you and are on your side about things is so important, because this is where my doula came in, my midwife, and they helped me think of the questions that I wanted to ask. At one point my doula said, okay, something that Ayla holds value in with this birth is being in the know, because her last birth, she didn't feel like she was in the know with a lot of things, so she just wants you to communicate these things with her and let her know. And so that was so valuable to me, because I was, trying not to cry and dealing with my own thoughts and trying to think about everything. And so she was able to kind of do that for me. So Kayla, if you're watching this, I love you. You're the best. Thank you so much for helping me deliver both girls. I couldn't even imagine doing it without you. If you're in the Calgary area, definitely, and you're looking for a doula, highly recommend Kayla and her team. They will be linked down below. So that was kind of the option that we seemed like we were working. They were working me towards understanding and accepting that that was probably going to happen, but they weren't jumping to it yet, and I so appreciate that. So what we ended up deciding is there was something called an amnio infusion. So because my water had broken, there wasn't that amniotic fluid in there with her. And so what we assumed is that there was something going on with the cord probably, and that every contraction maybe was compressing the cord. But because there wasn't the amniotic fluid in there, it wasn't getting the chance to even loosen or move around or that kind of thing, because it was all constricted in there. And so the amnio infusion is basically putting a catheter in and pumping in this fluid that's supposed to mimic an amniotic fluid, and just kind of giving fluid in there to help, potentially loosen things and that sort of thing, create less stress on baby. So they told me that it was not a high percentage of it working, and that it didn't mean that I was going to have a vaginal birth, and it didn't mean I was going to have a C-section. We just were going to try it and monitor me and see. So we started that. Around 4:15 a.m. And the OB was like, okay, I'm going to come back. I got some things to do. I'm going to come back and check on you soon. And so she kept doing little pop-ins. She would look at, the paper with all of the info of baby's heart rate. She would say, okay, I'm still happy for now. I'll come back. I'm still happy for now. I'll come back. She kept doing that over and over again. And I kept thinking, okay, am I having a C-section or am I not? But I realize now she was just trying to give my body time to potentially work through this on its own. And baby wasn't in immediate danger or distress. We were just kind of cautiously just going forward. So, so around 6:25 a.m., I was checked again, and I was 8 centimeters dilated. So I think that was a point where we're okay, we're close to potentially being able to be fully dilated, but we need, we're still quite likely going to do the C-section route because, just the heart rate, the whole heart rate thing. But she said, okay, I'm still happy for now. I'm going to come back and check on you shortly. So it was just kind of waiting. listening to that haunting sound of the beeping slow down, looking at everybody's faces to see like what they were thinking when it did slow down, like is it recovering, like just kind of waiting. It was like waiting to have potentially a really scary experience, but like it hadn't happened yet, but like I knew it was gonna happen. It was kind of weird for me and a bit emotional, to be honest. But I didn't even think at that point that there was any hope, to be frank with you. And I don't think anybody else did either. We all really did think that C-section was coming. And so when I was, at 8, when it was 8 a.m., 8:05, Kayla wrote down, the one OB, they actually switched just in that time, like there was a shift change, and so there was a new OB came in, and she checked me, and she was like, she was quiet for a second, and I was like watching, like I wasn't thinking much of it, thinking like, okay, she's gonna tell me we're wheeling out now, like we gotta go. And all of a sudden she looks at me and she's like, so you're fully dilated, you can start pushing. I was like so taken aback. I was like, what do you mean, like I'm having a C-section, what do you mean I can start pushing? But she's like, yeah, like I'm just gonna do this one little thing, there's something with my cervix that she had to like do push something out of the way, anyways. And she's like, I'm just gonna do this and then you can start pushing. And I was like, oh, okay. So I hadn't like prepared myself mentally that I was even going to push this baby out, because I had just spent like 6 hours thinking I was having a C-section. So that was kind of cool, and I definitely was taken aback but also excited. So yeah, so around like 8:10 in the morning I started pushing, and let me tell you, second time pushing is absolutely definitely way better than first time pushing. With Nova I pushed for a very long time, like it was 2.5 hours at least, and this time I only had to push for 25 minutes, and so I was really thankful for that, because yeah, I definitely wanted that part to be less time, so I was thankful for that. So I was pushing and I had my whole team there and it was really great. And then at 8:34 is when Mila was born. So she came out, and very quickly everybody realized what the problem was, why we were having trouble, why the labor didn't progress as fast, why the heart rate decels were happening, and that was because Mila had the cord wrapped around her so many times. So the poor thing was in there like acrobat, fully on, like wrapped around. It was 4 times that she had it. So she had it twice around her torso and twice around her neck. So if you watch the birth vlog, you can literally see the OB have baby come out, and then she's like doing this whole move to like unwrap her, because, and you can also see me being there like ready to take the baby to like have her on my chest, and I'm like like give me the baby, but it just took so many times to unravel her. And then she came up. She was obviously in a bit of stress because she did poop all over, which was kind of funny. And then finally she let out that cry. It took like a little bit of time, but she finally let out the cry and she was perfectly healthy. But man, that cord is the whole reason why we're having so many troubles. Looking back, that's probably why I didn't progress as fast to 10 centimeters, because she was kind of like tied up in there. She wasn't able to like put as much pressure on my cervix because she wasn't given enough room to like do that. So she came out, she was perfectly healthy, and we did all the, started doing all the checks, and we had that beautiful moment of loving her on her and getting to see her face, and just like, oh, there's nothing that can really put into words how to describe the feeling of having your baby put on your chest like that. Like, it's just magic. Like, it's magic. And oh, it's like euphoric. Like, I love that moment with both girls, and I'll cherish that forever. So we're cuddling and just taking her in, and this is when I start to feel nervous because of my past with my retained placenta and with hemorrhaging and losing so much blood. So I start feeling nervous, and I actually, at one point, I looked at Caleb and I tell him, and like super serious. I said, if I have to be put out, if things go sideways again, you just take Mila and you just love on her and you bond with her. I said, don't worry about me. I know I'm going to be okay. I said, please just take care of Mila. And that's like the fear talking, right? Because I still had that residual trauma from my first birth. So I'm sad that I even said that to him because it's so negative. But anyways, I did. And we had, you know, this eye communication of like, okay, that's the plan. And I'm just kind of waiting. I'm like loving on Mila and enjoying her, but also waiting to see like what was going to happen with the placenta. And a little bit of time goes by, like, and I can tell they're working on it. And then my midwife tells me, because she was still there, even though my care was transferred to the OBs because of possibly needing a C-section, she was still there, and she was doing the checks on baby, and she was there for my support and everything. So she said to me to wiggle my bum. She was like, Ayla, wiggle your bum. Like, do like a wiggle. And so I did that a few times, and she kept telling me to do it. And eventually that actually helped my placenta come out. And I kid you not, you guys, like, that was so emotional for me. So the placenta comes out, and the person who was doing it said, okay, I got it. Like, I got it. And the whole room, like, there was several people in there because of everything, but, and being prepared for what could happen. But the whole room, first of all, the whole room was all women. Everybody was women. So I think we all kind of like, it was empowering, but every single person clapped and cheered, and my midwife high-fived me, and we were all like clapping and cheering, and the whole room was just filled with joy because I wasn't going to be dealing with that trauma again. And there was something so powerful in that moment. And I remember just like, you can hear me on the birth log, but I said like, thank you, like, because I was genuinely just so thankful that I didn't have to go through that stress again. So that was like a very special moment. And then I got to see the placenta. They gave me like a little tour of it, which I didn't get to see the first time because of course it wasn't something I could view. And I just got to love on Mila uninterrupted. I just got to like hold her, and it was so special. And as much as the labor and me thinking that I was about to have a C-section the whole time, and that there was like some potential risk for it to be like a traumatic experience again, it ended up being like really healing and beautiful and wonderful. And I am so grateful for that. I just am so grateful. So yeah, and then Caleb got to have this beautiful skin to skin time with her. He really got to enjoy that time, whereas with Nova, like, it was kind of overshadowed by like watching me go through what I had to go through and being literally at the receiving end of it, because where his chair was placed. But anyways, so he got to have that beautiful time with her, and we got to just like enjoy those moments without having like a cloud over our heads with that stress. So anyways, that was really special. They did keep a close eye on me and my bleeding, and there's lots of those, like, nobody ever talks about this, but the nurses come in and they push on your uterus to just make sure it's, you know, getting what it needs out, and that the bleeding doesn't get too bad and all that. So they're pushing on my uterus. It happened to me, like, they did it throughout my whole postpartum stay. They did it like 10 times or more, like constant, just checking on it because of my history. So that is so painful and awful, but a necessary evil, I guess. And then, yeah, let's see what Caleb wrote down here. So the birth happened at 8:34 a.m. and the placenta came out at 8:44. So within the 10 minutes of like everything that it needed to do. So that was awesome. And then he wrote down 9 to 11 we had snuggles in that room. So that's just when, you know, time that they're taking, checking on Mila, doing all of the like all the stuff that they do with the newborns, you know, like weighing her and all of that, and the skin to skin, and checking on me and making sure my bleeding was good, and stitching me up because I did have a tear. She said it was a 2nd degree tear, but it was like barely 2nd degree. but a tear nonetheless, which I think she said, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry you teared. I was like, oh no, I don't care. I was like, honestly, the fact that the placenta is out and I'm not having this whole thing again, I don't even care that I teared. Like, I'm good. You're good, girl. Just stitch it up. We're good. No hard feelings. But yeah, anyways, and then at 11 a.m. is when we transferred over to the postpartum room. So Mila was born August 8th, 2021, and she came out at 7 pounds, 11 ounces, and she was 19 inches long. So my labor this time around was absolutely shorter than my first labor, water breaking at 5, but contractions only really starting at 8:30. So 8:30, and then she was born 8:30, so it was like 12-hour labor, whereas my labor with Nova was 24 hours long, so I'll take it. It was split right in half. I do think it could have been faster if we hadn't had the whole cord issue, but that's okay. The fact that she came out healthy, that, you know, we didn't have anything terribly traumatic to deal with, I'm so grateful. And like I said before, it felt like a bit of a healing moment, because yeah, it was just really emotional and really incredible. So it was really special. So that's pretty much everything for my birth story. I am so glad that I was able to go through all the details and share with you guys, and also just something that I can look back on. And you know, as time goes by, so many details get fuzzy, so having this like concrete recollection of it is just really special. The past 3 weeks with Mila have been amazing. They have been hard and wonderful, and it's like just a lot of emotions all wrapped into one, but we are so happy to have her here in our family and just love her so much. Thank you guys so much for all the love these past few weeks, and for, yeah, just like being like our cheerleaders even for the past several years as we've been on this crazy journey to parenthood. I cannot believe that I have 2 children. Wow, like what a blessing. And I will never go a single day without being so grateful for that. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.